All right. Hi, everyone. Welcome to the live stream. I'm Jose with Lowell Observatory. I'm one of the public program educators there. And I'll let Hannah introduce herself.
Yeah, hi, I'm Hannah. I'm also an educator at Lowell Observatory, and I'm also a research assistant at Lowell. And tonight we're going to talk about the blue moon, some scary things in space, and aliens.
So I know that we had advertised having a feed of the moon rising over the overlook on Mars Hill, but unfortunately here in Flagstaff, it's a little bit cloudy tonight, so we can't actually see the moon right now, and that means we won't be able to be looking at anything in the sky with any of our telescopes at our Geo Valley Open Deck Observatory as well. So that's a little bit unfortunate, but we're still gonna give you some really good information about the blue moon and some fun astronomy stuff.
And again, if you do want to see different objects in the sky, we do have the interactive stargazing events every Tuesday night at 8 o'clock. So tune into those if you guys want to see any cool space objects.
Yeah, those ones are really fun, and you can request specific objects as well. So I'm going to go ahead and pull up my presentation for everyone. Real quick, we can talk about the blue moon. So this picture shows the moon as blue, but the moon will not actually be blue tonight. I know, unfortunate. The moon is rarely ever going to look blue for you when you look in the sky, even on a blue moon night. The reason that a blue moon is even all that exciting is because it is the second full moon to happen this month. So we had a full moon happen on October 1st, and we are having a full moon tonight on Halloween night, always making things extra spooky, right? Sometimes we have 4 full moons occur in one season. So seasons are generally about 3 months long. Why is this not going? There we go. It just was lagging. So we'll have 4 full moons happen in one season, and that could also be counted as a blue moon, but that did not happen this season. It was 2 full moons in 1 month. And the last time this happened was actually in 2018. We got 2 blue moons in 1 year. It was pretty fun. And then the next one is not going to happen until 2023. So it's going to be a little bit about 3 years from now. So that's pretty much all that's interesting with a blue moon. So again, the moon is not actually going to be blue tonight.
Unfortunately, but it's super cool that it lands on Halloween this year.
It makes things really spooky.
It does.
And just so everyone knows, that's where the phrase "once in a blue moon" comes, is because it's a rare event. It's a relatively rare event that happens. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to launch into my portion of this presentation. I'm going to talk about some scary astronomy, right? Some things that seem scary, but maybe they really aren't all that scary. And we have a picture here on the title slide. This is just a picture of the sun with these are some solar prominences that you can see across the hemispheres. And those kind of just are making a shape that makes the sun look like a jack-o'-lantern right now. And that's in fact not scary at all. It's just something that regularly occurs on the sun. It just looked like a jack-o'-lantern in this picture. But one of my favorite things that is really spooky is the star Algol. Algol is one of the brightest stars in the constellation Perseus. Perseus is in fact up in the fall sky right now. So if you live in the northern hemisphere, you can go outside and you can see Algol. The thing that's scary about this star is it disappears every 3 days. So because of that, stars don't generally just disappear on you. Because of that, it's a little bit scary. So it has been dubbed the demon star because it's a little spooky, right? It's always been associated with the Gorgon Medusa. So if you are not familiar with Greek mythology, then you probably haven't heard of Medusa, but most people have. Medusa is this monster who's so hideous to behold that when you look at her, you turn into stone. And she has snakes for hair. And she, in the classical Greek story, she was slain by Perseus. So the constellation Perseus usually features him holding up her head. So Medusa is always a pretty scary monster associated with Algol. Of course, Algol isn't all that scary once you break down the science of it. As it turns out, Algol is an eclipsing binary star. That means it's not one, but two stars, and they're orbiting around each other. But one of those stars is significantly fainter than the other one. So when the bright star passes behind the faint star, it's being eclipsed. Sometimes it can be faint enough that you can't even see it anymore with the naked eye. So it looks like it blinks out of existence. So it's, as it turns out, it's not all that spooky. Algol is one of my favorite stars in the night sky. I love talking about it. Another scary thing we have is Fomalhaut or Fomalhaut. I can't pronounce it. Sorry. I call it Fomalhaut. But you might recognize what this looks like right away, right? Yeah, it's always watching you. Looks like the Eye of Sauron from the Lord of the Rings movies, right? This particular image of this star is an infrared image. So this isn't what Fomalhaut would look like if you were to look at it with a telescope tonight. Again, another star that's up tonight. If you were to get like the Spitzer space camera and take a picture of it, you would see this sort of image right here. And it's taking a picture of the debris disk around this star. So this is a young solar system with planets that are still forming. And so there's a lot of like tiny space rocks that are in orbit around it. And that's why it kind of looks like this. And incidentally, it does have a planet that has been identified going around it, or it did at one point. And scientists weren't too sure if this planet was really a planet or if it was just a debris clump. And it's gone in and out of the, I guess, planetary status. We don't have to get into the definition of a planet right now, but this planet, Fomalhaut B, has often been called a zombie planet because sometimes it's been killed as a planet. They're like, no, it's not a planet, and then the scientists think that it might actually be a planet, so it's come back to life. Another fascinating thing. Speaking of zombies, we also have a zombie star. Again, something that is visible in the night sky tonight. It's in Cassiopeia, I believe. And this star, we call it a zombie star because it was once a dead white dwarf star, but has since reignited its fusion in its core and come back to life. And how does a star that has been dead just come back to life? With a supernova. So this is a type 1a supernova, and this usually happens when there's a white dwarf that has gotten too close to another star, and it starts to accrete mass from that star. It takes all of it, sucking it up, gobbling it up, and eventually the white dwarf gets enough mass and enough energy that fusion reignites, and it triggers a supernova event. And this one is called Tycho's supernova because Tycho Brahe, who was a scientist back in the 1500s, he was, among many people who saw this supernova happen to the point where it was bright enough they could see it with the naked eye. It has long since faded from naked eye view, and you would have to be able to look at it with a telescope, particularly with a X-ray telescope, to be able to see it. So that's why it's a zombie. It's come back to life. We have comets. Comets have traditionally always been really spooky things. Comets have been named disasters or bad stars. That's the Greek word disaster, right? because they tend to come before major events. And here's just a list of major events that could happen: tidal waves, hurricanes, earthquakes, war, riots, famine, plagues. Across history, there have been times when coincidentally a comet will precede some of these major events. There are two that I can think of are in the 1400s, Halley's Comet passed by and the Black Plague happened. So, and then in 1812, Halley's Comet passed by and then Napoleon invaded Russia. So now there is absolutely no scientific evidence that says that comets cause these bad things to happen. They are just major coincidences. As it turns out, bad things happen all the time. And if there was a comet for everything, there'd be a comet going by every second. So they are, in fact, they're not related to any of these at all. The comets are used to be hard to predict because they have long periods. It takes sometimes hundreds of years for a comet to make one trip around the sun. So one generation of people might see one comet go by in their life. They're going, what is that? I've never seen that before. And they associate it with a harbinger instead. So they're not really anything to be afraid of. Comets are, in fact, really cool. And we study them here at Lowell. The blood moon, right? It sounds scary. It sounds like something scary that would happen just because it's got the word blood associated with it. But a blood moon, when the moon turns red like this, it is just the result of a lunar eclipse. So a lunar eclipse happens when the Earth passes directly between the sun and the moon. It always happens during a full moon, right? So the moon is going to be up in the middle of the night, and the Earth is going to cast a shadow upon the moon, which was once lit by the sunlight. And the reason it turns red is most often is when the sunlight passes through the Earth's atmosphere, sometimes gets refracted, and it will hit the moon. And so as it is refracted through the atmosphere, some of the particles will scatter the light, and usually red light passes through. This is called Rayleigh scattering, and it'll turn red. The more pollutants there are in the Earth's atmosphere, the darker the moon will appear. And generally, it will become blocked after a volcanic eruption or something. So those don't happen very often. So they generally tend to be like this bright red color. And then, of course, we have Mars. Here at Lowell, we're pretty proud of Mars. We've studied Mars since Percival Lowell founded the observatory. He thought that there were people on Mars building canals. Anna's going to tell you all about that one. So he thought there were aliens on Mars. But historically, Mars has been associated with gods of war. Right? We got Ares right down there. And it's because of its red color that Mars looks red in the sky. When you go outside tonight, you will see Mars. It's going to be one of the brightest things in the sky. You can see it rising right after sunset over in the eastern side of the eastern sky. And it's going to have this bright red hue. And that's just because Mars has this red dust on it. So it's always been associated with war gods. To make things even scarier, Ares, the Greek god of war, which Mars used to be called, has two sons, Phobos and Deimos, which scientists have named Mars's two moons after. And Phobos and Deimos mean panic and fear, or fear and panic. Sorry, I had it backwards in my head there. So just to make things a little bit spookier. And the most spooky thing about Mars is actually its mysterious face. So in 1976, the Viking 1 orbiter, sent this image back to NASA revealing this picture of this face. And ever since then, people have mused about what this face could possibly be. There are even movies that talk about the face of Mars. It does, if you can see two eyes. They look like a human face right here. And so this brings up musings of, oh, was it aliens? Was it Martians? Did they build this? What is this? But in recent years, with higher resolution photographing, we can take a picture of that same structure. And as it turns out, it's just a really big boulder. And in different lighting and with higher resolution, you can see there's not much of a face there actually. You can probably see where the shadows used to be. You can see right here, it's supposed to be where those eyes were. But other than that, it just looks like a mountain to me. So turns out the face of Mars isn't really anything, it's not anything spooky at all. This actually leads us right into Hannah's presentation. Hannah is going to talk all about aliens, if we couldn't get any more spooky. So I'm going to turn this over to her.
Thank you, Jose. Yeah, that face on Mars is a little spooky. So let me share my screen now real quick here. And just like Joe said, I will be talking about aliens. Let me figure this out real quick. So humans have been interested in aliens for quite a while. Ever since going back to around 200 AD, we have writings of people actually discussing aliens. We have movies. I think this one's called The Princess of Kaguya, talking about moon beings coming to Earth. And so it's really been this long kind of philosophical question of, are we alone in the universe? And that's something that we're still interested in to this day. It's kind of a part of being human, is, you know, wondering what else is out there? Are we alone? And kind of like, how did we get here? So it's this really, really interesting kind of thing that we do. And so Percival Lowell, I know you guys probably heard a lot about him before. So Percival Lowell at Lowell Observatory, he actually did observations of Mars and would do sketches of the surface. And during these sketches, he would draw out these really sinuous kind of channel features, and he called them canals. And so there was an Italian astronomer named Giovanni Schiaparelli, and he actually already wrote about these, and he called these canellis. And so that translates to channels, but Percival Lowell was the one who took it a step further and said they're actually canals. They're these intelligent made features on the Martian surface. And so that kind of got people thinking, you know, is there life on Mars? Is there aliens or some type of beings on Mars? And so that led to, you know, the book, War of the Worlds. And we still have that accurately represented today in media. We have, you know, Mars Attacks. We have The Martian here. And so science fiction and people are still really interested in kind of seeing if there is this life elsewhere, and kind of bringing that into their own stories. And so Ad Astra, we had Interstellar, we had some really, really cool sci-fi movies about what this life could look like if we ever did find it, or what it would be like if we ever traveled elsewhere besides Earth. And so that's still kind of what we're trying to do. You know, as scientists, we're still really interested in answering those questions. We also want to know if we are alone or if there's things else out there. And so the public really gets interested in this. And so there's a lot of things that are pretty clear, and then some things that aren't so clear when it comes to aliens, UFOs, or extraterrestrial life. And so some things that are a little bit more clear, for example, like when SpaceX launches a rocket or something like that, we get this really intricate, beautiful shapes in the sky. And people don't necessarily realize that it's actually a rocket being launched into space. And so sometimes there is, you know, people wondering if that is actually UFO or something like that. Compared to the image on the right, this is an image from the Pentagon that just got released, I believe, this year, talking about an unidentified flying object. And so that's kind of what we're still trying to figure out. Is there things out there that we don't know about? And so, like I said, there's things that are a little bit more clear than others. But like I said, as scientists, we're still trying to actively figure that out. And so instead of going to this large scale picture of, is there UFOs and spaceships on Earth? or traveling around, or these little green men, we actually get a lot smaller than that. And we are looking for microbial life outside of Earth. And so really good example of that is the Curiosity rover and the Perseverance rover. So the Curiosity rover is currently on Mars, and it's currently surveying the Gale crater area. And the Perseverance rover will be landing in February 2021. So it just launched just a few months ago. And it's going to be looking for signs of past life or current microbial life in the Martian soils. And so the two sites that we have here, to the image to the left is Jezero Crater, and that is a dried up delta kind of valley network that once had water on it. And so we think that the clays in this Martian soil formed in these fluvial features have the potential to actually fossilize microbial life if it is there. And the same goes with Gale Crater. So that's Gale Crater to the right there. And it's also had that same potential. We have clay-bearing units that we observed with remote sensing data. And so that's what's super exciting about this mission, the Mars 2020 Perseverance rover, is it's going to have a lot of instruments on it to be able to tell if there is any extinct or current life on Mars. So I think that is super exciting. Looking forward to February. It can't come any faster. And then we also have things looking outside the solar system. So to the left, we have the Kepler telescope, and to the right, we have the TESS telescope. So TESS stands for the Transiting Exoplanet Survey System, something like that. And so what these two telescopes look for is transiting exoplanets. So there's these planets in other systems outside of our own that orbit around their host star. And so these telescopes can actually detect when a tiny little planet passes right in front of its host star, and we can see a little dip in the light curve. And so there's thousands of exoplanets that we have discovered to date. And now it's becoming more of a common thing where it's not like, oh, we see, one exoplanet every so stars. We actually think now that most stars have an exoplanet around them, which is super exciting when it comes to, is there anything else outside of our solar system? There's all this potential for all of these different exoplanets. And one really, really, really exciting system is TRAPPIST-1. So TRAPPIST-1 is a star in the constellation Aquarius. And we actually figured out that this exoplanet system not only has 1, 2, or 3 exoplanets, it has 6 exoplanets that actually go around it, or 7 exoplanets that actually go around it. And that is super exciting. Not only does it have 7 exoplanets, most of them are in the habitable zone of this star. And so what the habitable zone is it's a certain distance away from a host star to where there's the potential for liquid water to be stable on the planet's surface. And so I believe at least 4 of these exoplanets are in the habitable zone of the star. And the star is very, very unique and different from our own sun, because our own sun is a little bit bigger, it's in the middle of its life cycle, and it's a lot hotter. And TRAPPIST-1 is a cooler star, and it's a lot smaller. And so the habitable zone for this star is actually super, super close to it. So all these planets orbit closer than the orbit of Mercury for this star. So they're really, really, really close in the orbit compared to our solar system, where all the planets are super spread out. We have Pluto like 4 billion miles away. So it's really interesting, the different systems that we're seeing, and just kind of figuring out if we can actually detect biosignatures in atmospheres of these other exoplanets. And this is still very, very active research place right now. So it's super exciting to see kind of what comes of all this research. And so speaking of looking at biosignatures in the atmosphere of planets, there was recently a paper that was published about finding a potential biosignature in the atmosphere of Venus. And so that was the last place that we expected biosignatures to be anywhere. And so this paper is now under review. There's data that doesn't really look more or less correct, but what they did claim that they found was a biosignature called phosphine in the atmosphere of Venus. And phosphine, we see it in Jupiter, we see it here on Earth, and in small amounts, it's not a big deal, but the amounts that they found on Venus was enough to say there is this potential biosignature in the atmosphere. But now it kind of looks like it was just a flaw in the way that they reduced the data. And so that paper is currently under review for more data reduction. So we're actually going to see in the next few months here or so if there is actual phosphine in the atmosphere of Venus. And if so, that is very significant to the search of extraterrestrial life, if there's life outside of Earth. So fingers crossed, we've got some really exciting stuff with Venus and Mars happening just really, really soon here. So that's really cool. I'm excited for that. But that's all I got when it comes to aliens and the search that we're doing right now to try to find extraterrestrial life. And if you guys have any questions, please feel free to leave them in the chat. Happy Halloween, everyone. Please stay safe. We're going to read through some of the questions that we have in the chat here. So, Jose, do you want to start off?
Yeah, sure. So the first question we have from Daniel Mallets. I hope I said his name right there. But he asked, why is it called a blue moon if it's not actually blue? And while Hannah was giving her presentation, I decided to try and look that up. And I didn't get a lot of results, but as it turns out, it was coined by someone in the early 20th century in the Farmer's Almanac. And he was talking about the 4 moons in a season as opposed to 2 moons in a month. And he coined it. I don't exactly know where he got it. So I hope that answers your question.
I see that there's another question right after that by John Led asking, how often does a full blue moon happen on Halloween? And so I also looked that one up too, Jose, while you were talking, and I saw that it potentially could happen around every 20 years. So that's quite a while. So 2040.
Yeah, so in order for a full moon to happen twice in 1 month, it's got to be one of the longer months. So they have to have 31 days pretty much. You're rarely going to see it happen in like a 30-day or shorter month. So it's probably going to happen more often in October than in April. But yeah, so one other person asked a question about an asteroid that is coming in 2020, BX12, and I had to look this one up too. And this was an asteroid that was recently discovered this year. It was discovered in January, and it's called 2020 BX12, right? And there's not much that we really know about this asteroid since it's recently discovered, but it is one that is what is considered a near-Earth asteroid. So that means it comes in close to the Earth in its orbit. And those ones are always very interesting. And sometimes the media will often, it'll blow up in the media, and they'll be like, oh, dangerous asteroid coming, it's going to crash into the Earth. But it's not anything that we need to be worried about, because it's not going to come close enough to the Earth anytime soon that it's going to be hazardous. A really thing about this asteroid I found was that it's actually a binary system. So it's an asteroid with a small asteroid orbiting around it. It's kind of cool.
Those are really cool. I like them a lot.
Yeah.
All right, so we have another question. Why is the moon orange? So that's a really great question. So I know it's kind of weird, we call it a blue moon, and then you look at the moon right now and it's orange. So I think that we can answer 2 questions in one here. Why is the moon not blue? Why is it orange? And then also, why is it orange? So I believe right now there's different factors that go into creating the different colors that we see here on Earth for the moon. So the orange that we see when the moon starts to rise is actually because you're looking through so much atmosphere that low in the horizon. So red wavelength actually hits us first. And so it looks really, really orangey red. And then depending on kind of how the weather is in your area, if there's a lot of humidity, if there's any smoke nearby, all these different factors can kind of go right in front of the moon, all those different layers, and make it look this orange color. And so I don't ever think, I really don't ever think there's ever a time that the moon can be really blue. It will look really, really white, and that can kind of give off a blue tinge. But usually the names, blue moon, pink moon, blood moon, it just means the type of moon that's happening in that month, or the name of the special event that the moon is having. No, I don't know how to word that. The kind of special moon that is happening at the current moment. And Joseph, you want to kind of build off of that?
I think you said it really good. It does, if you were there when I was talking about lunar eclipses, why the moon looks red during a lunar eclipse, it's the same reason. It's because of the light from the Earth's atmosphere is getting scattered by particles.
Yeah.
And then I think that answered Eunice Huang's question, which came next. Eunice was asking why it's not really blue. And it's just, again, blue moon is called a blue moon for really no particular reason. It's kind of misleading, I guess, that is called that. That one guy in the Farmer's Almanac in 1937 ruined it for the rest of us, I guess. But a blue moon just happens. It happens once in a blue moon.
Yeah, there's no better way to put it.
And then it looks like there's no more questions left, but I have found out recently that we did get the moon rising over the overlook. So we're going to actually get to show you a little bit of a feed of the moon. So it's going to be a little bit fuzzy and cloudy because we do, again, in Flagstaff, we are overcast tonight, which is unfortunate for any astronomers out there. So we'll go ahead and do that now.
Yeah, so I think the moon cam is already up. So we got, again, a little fuzziness going on. Yeah, a little bit of clouds. And it looks like it's a little bit darker on one side, actually. And so I think that actually just has to do with the clouds right now. But that's the view that we have in Flagstaff today of the moon. And so again, everyone, happy Halloween. Please be safe. And I hope everyone has a really good night.